Well, it's my very good luck to welcome you all here. The first time I came up to Global House, I had no idea it was so huge. I thought it was going to be a very small, single-story place, and there wouldn't be very many people. I knew nothing about the Brahma Kumari, and over the years, it has become apparent that it is, for very good reason, that it is a worldwide organization, and has made extraordinary contacts with people in every faith, and made great contacts in many countries, and is thoroughly to be known about. Now, there's nothing I like more than introducing my friends to one another. So I can see amongst the group here quite a few people I know already, and some people I don't. So I hope by the end of today you will have all met somebody you didn't know before. So a big welcome and many thanks to all the people who have put a lot of time and trouble into organising it, and especially to the speakers. I also want to point out to you, I haven't met her yet, but in the corner here we have Cindy Lass. Now Cindy is going to be hiding behind that canvas, and during the whole event she is going to be painting. And she's going to be painting as she is inspired to paint. And at the end of the afternoon she will turn it round and she will then tell us a little bit about what has inspired her. But from what I've heard of her, her mission really is to bring people together through art. Now, you may wonder why this is called Points of Light. It's really called Points of Light because we were very struck when we were putting it together that it is through different points of light that we come to see things differently. So, for instance, if you live in a house, until you look out of a window, you don't know what's outside. So we all live in our own identities. And until we meet another person, we really don't know how another person lives. And certainly in my life, the things which have woken me up onto a spiritual path have been meeting people. So these people have been points of light. And all the speakers that are here today have been particularly chosen because they all are points of light. They probably, if you said to them, you're a point of light, they'd say, no, I'm not. But in fact, we are all points of light. And the light is the light which is in every person. But we sometimes need to hear a person speak to remember who we are and remember who they are. But I'm going to hand over to Sister Jayanti, who is definitely a gigantic star of light.
Good afternoon, and a greeting of peace. Om Shanti. Many of you are very familiar with this, and those who are not, Om means I am, and Shanti is peace. So it's a very beautiful reminder of the point of light. This is who we are, a point of light, a point of peace, able to shine and radiate light and peace everywhere. Until yesterday afternoon, I was in Bonn at the UN Climate Change Conference. And has there been any media coverage in Britain? Little. It wasn't a high-flying event like the one in Paris 2 years ago, where there were 150 heads of state that had gathered. They converged in Paris, and the amount of security and buzz and excitement was a very different story. Here it was what they described as a technical meeting, but we had people like the President of Germany and of course Mrs. Merkel, the Chancellor, and Mr. Macron from France. And at the end of it all, I wonder, because the Paris agreements were not binding, and only one country seems to have actually moved forward in their own nationally determined commitment, and that is China. And for 2 years there was a plateau in which there wasn't any rise of carbon dioxide emissions. Last year there was. So where do we go from here? The scientists are very clear that we've reached several tipping points, as they describe. There are incremental changes until a certain point. Beyond that point, you don't know. And the ocean has been acting as a carbon sink, as they describe it. It's been absorbing a lot. But what next? The scientists say you have to do something now. Like it should have happened 10 years ago, but at least now. Otherwise, the future is very, very uncertain. A lot of information like that, not very pleasant. But why do I share this? The politicians need a lot of light. And so my hope is that today it won't just be light for this neighborhood, which also needs light, not just light for London or the UK, but light for the world. The world definitely needs a lot of light. And it's not just the politicians. Just imagine if the politicians were to say to you, okay, no more private transportation, only public transportation, how many of us would be ready to accept it? If the politicians were to say, okay, only plant-based diet, because these are the two big ones in terms of lifestyle, transportation, and equally the same emissions from agriculture and dairy farming. And so if the politicians were to say, only plant-based diet, would we agree? So these are the questions that they're grappling with. Of course, I'm simplifying it hugely, but these are the sort of things that they're having to deal with. But a light of hope for the future. UNESCO had on its stand, changing minds, not climate. I thought, wow, that's good. Beautiful. Why? Because those of you who know us know, but those of you who don't, since 2009, when we've been attending these conferences, climate change conferences in particular, our slogan has been consciousness and climate. And most people say, what's consciousness got to do with climate? It's got everything. Because when my consciousness is of the point of light that I am, I'm really content and very full. There's an inner happiness and abundance in which I don't accumulate. And when I don't know this, and my consciousness shifts from the inner being to the external identity, I want, and I want more. I've got more than enough already, but I want more. And that's actually the consciousness that has led to this particular situation in which it's really now or never. We can make a change now and hope that we'll make a difference. Or we can carry on business as usual. So I'm using the term politicians, but it's not only them. They know what human reactions are going to be. It's a very interesting conversation we had at a round table at the Sustainability Forum. And again, that deals with high business. So it's supported by people like BMW. So what is their motive? Sustainability? So it raises a few questions, but we've been with them for the last 5 years or so. And the round table they gave us to conduct, myself and a technical person from the Brahma Kumaris who's been responsible for the research and development in this, in the solar energy. They chose the topic, why is it so difficult to change mindsets? Is it? Is it? Who thinks it's difficult to change mindsets? Well, if you've ever tried changing a habit, who's tried to change a habit? Anyone? Well, how come we're not able to change our habits as quickly as we would like to? Mindset. If our mindset were to shift, the habit would shift. So it's been a very interesting 2 weeks, but now the question, how strongly can we shine so that the light reaches out and is able to elevate the consciousness of many, many others? More good news. One act of kindness touches at least 125 people. I won't go into the detail of how and what and why, but this is Harvard research, and that is a fact. One act of kindness. And if today our act of kindness is to send out light to the world so that people can start shifting their consciousness and their lifestyle, definitely we can create a better world together. So it's not a very big task, is it? But all of us together, we can make it happen. Let's have a few minutes of reflection on this awareness. Going within, I come to that point of light that I am, and holding this awareness of light, I connect with my own inner peace. And as the points of light come together, the light multiplies, peace multiplies. Peace reaches out to the human family, opening hearts and minds. Peace reaches out to all forms of life, so that they feel safe and protected. Peace reaches out to the elements of nature, and nature returns to a state of harmony, with the elements cooperating with each other and with the human family. And the light envelops this planet, and we move into the day, a time of love, justice, and peace. Om Shanti.
So welcome again to this event, and I should just mention that this event, Points of Light, It's a collaboration between the Brahma Kumaris and Just This Day, now in its 10th year.
11th, actually.
Oh, 11th, right, okay, still counting. And it's also in honor of Interfaith Week. And so it's part of a much bigger network, of course. And as well as welcoming all the people here sitting in the hall, I'd like to welcome those who are watching online. So we'll find out at the end how many people are also with us virtually, because we're being webcast too. And so welcome to our panel. And we'll be exploring in more depth the theme of points of light, the inward turn. And we'll be hearing from our panel what really has ignited that light within, that has enabled them to bring light into their life and into their work. And I think we have some very special points of light here on the stage, with a great, huge wealth of experience. And I think they're all people who are able to show us that reflection of the inner and the outer, because it is a spiritual principle, isn't it, that whatever is the state of our awareness, the state of the human being within, it is reflected in the outer state of the world. And so we're going to hear more about that. And we just have a brief time together now. We will have time for questions later on. So I'd like just to briefly introduce our panelists, and then I will ask them a question and they will share something, and then we'll continue with the interaction. So on my left is Salina Ahmed, and she is the Chief Visionary Officer and co-founder of Inspirited Minds. Actually, when I saw your title, I thought, I'd like to be a chief visionary of something. That's a fabulous title. So this is a faith-based mental health charity in London that raises awareness and provides professional, confidential support to those with mental health illness. And Salina is also an activist engaging on subjects pertaining to religion, social issues and politics. So welcome, Salina. Thank you. Jeremy Sinclair. He's the chairman of the well-known ad agency M&C Saatchi. He's known as the quiet man of advertising and has been behind some of the most successful ad campaigns of recent times. Jeremy is also a senior tutor of philosophy at the School of Economic Science. He's also a practitioner because he told me that he meditates with enthusiasm twice a day. And I like the enthusiasm part, that's great. Mina Karawadra is a meditation teacher with the Brahma Kumaris. She also helps to manage the BK Inner Space Centre in the centre of Oxford, particularly the publicity side. You might get a few tips, you don't know. She has been a resident at the Global Retreat Centre since 2008. Mina, she tells me she loves to connect with people, and she's run positive thinking courses for university students, mental health workers, and the staff at Oxford City Council, to name a few. And Father Laurence, very well known to all of us who are part of Just This Day and many more. Father is the director of the World Community of Christian Meditation. He is a Benedictine monk. Father Laurence, and I really like this bit, wishes to reinsert contemplation into the melancholy heart of organized Western religion. He is strongly committed to interreligious dialogue and international peace initiatives. So we have welcome to all of you and thank you for being here. So I'd like to ask a question to each of you. May I start with you, Salina?
Of course.
Salina, you are obviously a very inspired young woman.
Thank you.
Shall I tell them your age? No, okay. Very young. And who wishes to make a difference in the world. And I know you had said to me that being your authentic self is a very important motivator and point of light for you. So how do you find that purpose? Maybe you're still seeking it, maybe you feel you've found it. And what gives you the strength to continue to do what you're doing?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to know, is this working?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay. Thank you for your question. I would say my authenticity is my purpose. And I think that has a very broad connotation to it, and it can carry multiple meanings. But for me, it carries the notion that one is complete in their character enough to establish their soul's work in the world. And I think to attain that is a lifelong journey. My point of turn, or my spiritual reason, what brought me inward, I would say is my desire to feel protected by something that's not fleeting. And it was this desire that was my guidance towards God. And I felt this at a very young age. I think at very vulnerable and tender chapters of my life, I have experienced things that have made me feel very unsafe. And I think it's this which led me to my sort of need, which grew, to just seek refuge in something. And in Islam, in Arabic, we have a term that says that where we say "A'udhu billah," and that we say it every single time when we're praying, when we're reading God's book. It's something that we carry with us throughout our day, and it means I seek refuge in Allah. And it's just, it was almost as though I found this shelter where I grew up in, and wherein I was raised by God. And this is how it felt, and this is how I perceived it to be. But of course, as I grew, I realized that, like in this space, as I grew as a woman, I realized that a lot of the experiences I underwent was due to society viewing me as vulnerable and maybe weak. Vulnerable in a negative way. And first as a child, and then as a woman. And I think that every woman here today will understand that just being a woman in ourselves, there's a lot of challenges that come with that today. And I think some of these challenges are, having or experiencing societal, cultural, misinterpreted religious expectations, which really are a huge form of emotional abuse. And I think it's that emotional abuse which kind of connects one woman to another, in the sense that we kind of understand each other's trials. I think that the way to come out of that, though, and the great paradox here is that all these entrapments that we experience, the way to come out of that is to enslave yourself, or have a servanthood to God. And that's the great paradox, where you find freedom in actually submitting yourself to the Creator. And once I found myself at that place, I was ready to serve. I was ready to sort of complete my character and just know myself more so that I can implement my life's purpose in this world.
Thank you. That is one of the clearest explanations I've ever heard of that process.
Thank you.
Really, of what it really means to surrender. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Jeremy a question, if I may. Jeremy, we're all on a journey, and I know that your spiritual journey means a lot to you. How transformational has this journey been in your life and in your work?
The short answer is I don't know yet. I'm still travelling, and I'll let you know as soon as I get there. I'll let you know.
Let me know, okay. But tell us a little bit about the journey on the way.
Journey starts when my mother was pregnant with me. She had 5 children, and she told me years when I was an adult. She said, when I was pregnant with you, I was vegetarian, and I read a lot of philosophy books. Okay, so that explains why my diet is what it is, and my enthusiasm is for philosophy. It was you talk about an inner journey. I was in, and so I just followed it, and I'm a bit of I'm a part-time. These people are professional, full-time people. I'm a part-time amateur, if there's anything further away. But I do love the subject, and I love teaching it. It's a great enthusiasm, it's a great honour that in the School of Economic Science I can teach philosophy, and people are prepared to listen. At least they look as though they're listening. And so it's a journey, and the bit I most like about it is that it's experimental. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I'll give you an example. Recently, I've come to the conclusion that the problem of being individual is that we're bitten by desires, and that keeps us small. So I thought, now wouldn't it be good if we could find the moment when the desire is fulfilled before the next one kicks in? Now the theory here was that you're at your happiness when your desire is fulfilled. So it may not be the holiday or the car or the wife or the husband. It may not be what you desire, getting that makes you happy. What makes the happiness could be when the desire has gone. So rather than relying on the object of the desire, what we might rely on is the fulfillment of the desire. Do you follow me? So I'm interested in finding this moment where one desire finishes and the next one starts. So if I could just find that moment, then it might be a much easier way of being at peace and full of ananda and at home than acquiring all these things. So that's the bit about philosophy I love. It's a practical exploration of living exercises.
That's it?
Okay. More?
Okay, well, I just ask you one thing. Do you think that if you do find that moment where the desire is fulfilled, or, because of desire itself, that you may not have any more desires?
I think with luck I would train myself to know that the key to it is the absence of desire, not the fulfillment of desires. So that is part of the experiment, part of the trial, to see whether if one starts on the basis you're happy, then that must be right. So we just got to get rid of those things that confuse us, make us pretend but we need something else.
Thank you. Great. We have a lot of keys there, don't we? Great. Mina, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Particularly, you say that you enjoy connecting with people, right? So
Yes.
you're connecting with all of us here. When you're connecting with people, do you prepare yourself with a particular state of awareness? What happens, because obviously it brings something out in you when you connect with people. So what's going on inside, and how does that awareness inside have an impact on others?
Thank you for asking the question. I'll just give a little bit of background of how it started. Now that I think about it, I was born and brought up in India, and we used to have a spiritual gathering at our place once a week. And I remember at the age of 9, I started to look after a children's group. So even though I was a children, under 10, I still had people around me, and we used to come together and either chant mantra or do some sort of slokas together once a week, and started to run that class for a long time. So from that moment, just feeling of connecting to the people, empowering, and at the same time, I see myself growing from that. So this is how it started. But when I moved to UK, started studying and then working full-time, the whole idea of connecting on spiritual level was kind of out of the window. It was more about getting my career. I wanted to be a businesswoman, so I worked towards that. I was with my uncle, or connecting to my uncle, who was a businessman in London, meeting a lot of business people and getting ideas. And again, even though it was something I wanted to do it, but behind that, the reason was because I wanted to help the village that I was living. The place that I was born and brought up was a very small village, about 4,000 people, population in that village. And this is only 20 years ago. So we didn't have a TV, radio or mobile phone. So a very small place, almost like a whole family together. And so I thought, well, if I earn a lot of money, I could help the village. So the idea again behind was helping. And I could see myself doing that. I was, by then I started working in Leicester, and slowly moving towards that aim of wanting to earn a lot of money and be kind of more around and connect with people. And then my father was introduced to meditation, and I saw some changes in him, and I was curious to know what he was doing. So it was out of curiosity that I went to Brahma Kumaris Center to find out about meditation, and did the meditation course and started to experience something that was so profound. So on one hand, I'm quite passionate about what I was learning and doing and growing. But at the same time, I've also observed that it was hard for me to connect to people. I was finding it difficult to initiate conversation, either because I was still not so much connected to modern technology, or I didn't know what was happening on EastEnder or Doctor Who. So there wasn't much to start the conversation. But when I started my spiritual journey and I started connecting within, it's almost like that light was lit inside. And that light, or the experience of that light, was so powerful that I felt I actually didn't need to do something outside. It was more about me feeling that light and allowing that light or that flow to just radiate, to share. And so this then kind of divert the whole direction of being into the business, to actually started to understand how I could continue to sustain that light and experience myself first. And then I started to realize that when I started talking to people or communicating with people from that space of not thinking that, oh, I know well, so I can give you some solutions or ideas about the problem or difficult situations, but more about, can I be in that space where I can just listen to what you're saying? And so my practice recently, and maybe for a while, is when I am connecting with people, is to actually really listen. And when I do that, I think a lot of the time they come up with their own solutions. But also, the other thing that I notice is when I am in the consciousness of not allowing that light to flow or listen, I feel sometimes myself drained when I'm listening, because I meet a lot of people who have difficult relationships or problems, and in that communication, I found that when you're trying to help, or if I'm trying to help, it actually doesn't help me or that person. So my best practice is to actually not think about helping, but to be present.
Thank you. Very interesting. We're having all these sort of, what's the word? Not contradictions. What's the other word? Anyway, what appears is not... Sorry? Contrasts, what appears, what you need to do, you actually need to do the opposite, and it becomes more effective. Thank you. Very beautiful, thank you. Father Laurence, may I ask you, it's an honour to have you with us, and when I meet you, as I'm sure same with many, I feel you have a great presence of peace, and along with that a smile. So it feels as if you do all your work within and with the divine. But I suppose in reality there is this creative tension, isn't there, between activism and silent contemplation. And so do you experience this creative tension within yourself, and how do you resolve it if you do?
Yes, I do feel it's a tension. Most of the time it's a creative tension. Sometimes if it gets unbalanced, then I notice it quickly, I think, and I try to restore the balance. I just come, maybe I look very peaceful today because I just come from 5 days of solitude on my little hermitage in the west of Ireland, in Bantry Bay. So I need to reset. And I think we're all composed of what easily become contradictions or oppositions, and we need to continuously balance them, and I do. And they very easily get out of balance. You might get it in balance for a day or for a couple of hours, and then something happens and it gets out of balance. So there's no fixed equilibrium, I think. It's a dynamic equilibrium. So I think what I try to do is keep a regular daily schedule wherever I am, whether I'm in my hermitage or if I'm traveling or whatever I'm doing or teaching. I try to keep the same basic framework, and that I learnt, from the rule of Saint Benedict. I'm a Benedictine monk, and Saint Benedict was the first great time analysis manager, and his insight, which is a universal insight, really, is that human beings are made up of different dimensions. Therefore, they have different needs. And I think what you were saying about, Jeremy, about desire is very interesting, because needs in themselves are good and healthy, but they easily become desires. They easily breed fantasies. So you need to meet those needs, natural needs, so that the needs may come from the body, they come from the mind, our need for knowledge, for creativity, for information, for curiosity, for intellectual delight, all sorts of things, entertainment even. And we have, of course, the spiritual dimension, which is the regulating one. I think the spiritual dimension is that dimension in which the other two are integrated and harmonized in this way of dynamic equilibrium. So you have prayer, work, and study. So the prayer, the times of prayer, the times of stillness and silence for me are essential. And I try to keep that. If I'm, on a long flight, I try to keep the times, my regular times of meditation. Or if I'm on a retreat or giving a retreat, I try to keep those basic times, morning, midday, and evening. And but it's what I've come to feel more and more is that the inner and the outer are really one. The deeper we go, we have this sense, I think, in our culture today of this division between inner and outer, because we are so overstimulated and outwardly directed. But as soon as we begin to compensate for that and begin to do this inner work, what we call inner work, we begin to see that actually the discrepancy between the inner and the outer is false. And there are times, that's when one is most authentic, as you were saying, most authentic, and I think most peaceful and most useful to others, is when you don't feel that there is a conflict between inner and outer. One is a manifestation of the other. I think what we call the inner has priority, where it's the mystery of our origin, the mystery of our life. But it's not inner in the sense of being opposed to the outer. So, and I think with regular meditation you become very quick to notice when the balance has gone and you have to recover it. So.
Thank you so much. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to ask to each other. Otherwise, just a thought I had that it would be very nice to explore a little bit what Father just said about the this flow between the inner and the outer. How do we really progress towards that, where there isn't that difference? And so what really is happening inside is manifest in a powerful way in the outside, in our actions. In other words, we are being truly authentic. Anybody like to pick up on that or pick up on something that's been said? Please.
The inner and outer... Sorry, go on.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, the artist Hereward. I'd like to ask, the inner and outer, that's very interesting, because I've got 2 young children who see a lot of social media. And this society doesn't give a lot of time for them to have quiet. And so I feel a lot of unhappiness comes out where we compare ourselves to others. It takes a very strong person to sit in their own, to sit in their own space and appreciate that they're okay, because we're told we're meant to be doing something every single moment. I just wanted to ask that, sorry.
Please, that's fine. Anyone like to respond?
What Mina said, maybe you could say a little bit more about that, was interesting. When you're with people, and when you have this, this harmony within yourself, and you feel the harmony with them, you don't have to do very much. And I think the Wu Wei, the Tao, the wisdom of non-action is very misunderstood in our culture, our world. We think we always have to do something, and we think that this non-action is passive or escapist. It's quite the reverse. But to get to that point where this consciousness flows effortlessly and unself-consciously, that takes a lot of work. Maybe you could say something about what you meant by that feeling of harmony with others, you know?
I think it's to do with the awareness that we really have to go beyond the consciousness of human. Because if the moment I'm aware that I'm a woman or I'm a meditator teacher or I'm anyone, that consciousness brings us down, and that consciousness actually makes us feel either limited in helping or limited in radiating the energy. So the more we become aware of the lights we are, or the energy or peace or higher consciousness, the easier it becomes to connect to that state of mind or to be in that space inside. And there are times when I have to remind myself. I think with practice, sometimes it's like you switch on to that automatically when you know, or when you meet someone and you know that, you know, they're gonna take 20 minutes to talk to you. It's like you can switch on, and sometimes you have to speak to yourself. You have to have a dialogue before you get into that space.
Jeremy, you were going to say some comments.
I was just going to pick up on the point of the inward. Normally, I don't know about you, but I habitually think of inward as going in here. But it seems that the effort is to go inward everywhere. So I'm not just going in here to find more about me, I'm going to the inside of everything. Does it make sense?
It does, yes. The deeper you go within, the more you find yourself connected with what seems outside.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's the test of a true spirituality. Because the false spirituality just, I think, locks you up in your introversion. Yes.
And then it becomes, I think, more interesting because you're inside of everything, rather than being inside of this and outside of all that.
And actually, it's on that where you really connect to people.
Yes.
Because otherwise, you can kind of create your own story and get lost in your own story.
Dangerous.
So I think it's in that connection where you really connect to people.
Salina, how does that relate to what you were talking about surrender and finding refuge in Allah, in God?
I think I take a kind of a different approach when it's when I'm connecting with people. I find that I connect with people so much better when I'm more firm in my identity, and when I am aware, when I have awareness and confidence in what my soul's purpose is. And one of the purpose is to, whether it's to help another human being, whether it's to listen to another human being, I feel like I can do that the best when I am firm in my identity, as that helps me surrender to God even more. The more I am able to know who I am and to be firm in my belief as to who I am, my authenticity, my subtle dispositions, wherever you want to label it as, the more I'm able to sort of surrender to God, because I know who I am and what I'm asking for from Him and what I need from Him.
I don't know, I wonder if it is different in a sense, because you're not talking about, like Mina was saying, the sort of human identity. You're expressing the soul identity, which is the going inward, I would think.
I suppose maybe it's all just subjective and
language, I guess, too.
Well, it'd be interesting to hear what people feel about finding the right work you've got to do, because there's a lot of things we could do. There are endless causes. The world is hungry for so many things. But each of us has more or less one thing to do. You may do it in many different ways, but there's one kind of work which is, I think, related to your authenticity and your self. And Sister Jayanti was talking about the politicians. Politicians seem to me, many of them, generically, but maybe not all, obviously, to be so outward directed that they forget the inner and the outer harmony. They don't have time for that, to balance it, and therefore they get scattered, distracted, superficial, short-term, and so that they don't really know what they're doing. We can see today, and and yet if you do this inner work in order to hold and to grow this creative tension, this balance, this equanimity, then you find your work. You find what it is you have to do, and then you have to sort of concentrate on it because you can't do everything. That would be interesting to hear how people feel, if that makes sense to them.
What do you feel? Anyone want to respond to that?
I withdraw my question.
That's fine.
Well, I could say what comes to my mind is, if I understood the question correctly, for me it's allowing God or the higher source energy to, I don't know if the entering is the right word, but to be able to use that space within, if I can create that space or that silence where the higher source is able to radiate or is able to help me to stabilize in that state of mind. So I feel that if I'm just working on my own, it's not enough for me to maintain that stability or that flow of pure energy.
Although you did say to me in conversation something like, I've never had to work hard to be peaceful. It's always come naturally. And I said, well, if I mention that, you'll have a lot of jealous people in the room. But do we bring something with us, We do, like you brought your vegetarianism and love for philosophy. Do you feel we like you say, we have a main purpose? Is there a main sort of trait or inspiration that we bring with us when we come? Or is it all acquired?
Right. I find it's like you've been dealt a hand and you play it. And I don't wish I had other cards. I just have to look at the ones I've got and play them intelligently. So I haven't found it effortful to practice as I do. Now, one could have made more effort, no doubt. But that, I feel you just followed the clues that someone's laid out for you.
That's very interesting. Followed a kind of destiny, in a way.
Yeah, that makes it sound a bit preordained, which I don't feel it is.
Right.
But I feel the possibility is in your hand.
Salina, you can say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as a follow-up comment from that, one thing that I've learned from my religion is that the concept of seeking contentment is often emphasized upon. To always be, it's not that you're not allowed to seek more, but it's just it doesn't mean that if you don't attain that you shouldn't be grateful for what you have. And it's that effort of being content at all times in the present, which leads to that, that inner peace. But I think, when we're born, we're peaceful because that's our natural disposition. And I think someone on the panel mentioned that as we grow, we're sort of bombarded with, things from society, things that we think we need to have, things that we think we need to be, and so on and so forth. And as a result, we become distracted and we're kind of taken away from that disposition. And I think just the way to go back is to practice contentment, because we can't remove ourselves from these situations because we're here. And we are going to learn things and be exposed to things. And the best way to, I think anyway, to practice or to put yourself in the path to peace is to really practice contentment and be grateful to what you've been given at all times. And this obviously doesn't mean that you're not allowed to feel sad or have human experiences, but just to always bring yourself back to that place again when you do pick yourself up.
I think that's a key, isn't it? Like Father Laurence was saying, rebalancing, reminding the self. But I'm also interested that that the challenges we face are huge in the world, really. I mean, in the world totally, but also in terms of our personal life. We don't know what's around the corner, and where people get stuck in identity. You actually called it a form of emotional abuse when people put you in a category. In your case, you said about being a woman, but it could be any category that people put you in. And so, how do we really rise above that? How do we respond to that? Because sometimes you feel it's so strong that, your back's against the wall almost. So, how do we find that inner strength? And what's the correct way to respond? Do we fight, or is there another way to respond to that?
I think it's really difficult to uncondition yourself. It's really difficult because as you're growing, you might come from a culture that teaches you have to be a certain way. You have to be like this. You're a woman, and then you're put in a box. Or you're a man, and then you're put in another box. And even in this society, for example, men can't cry. It makes them weak. Women can't work. It makes them like a man. All these sort of notions that we hear. I think the challenge is to uncondition, and it's when I started to do it, it was a very difficult journey because you kind of don't know what's right and you don't know what's wrong, and you need that guidance. For me, that guidance has always been my book, and I've never found a question that I have that didn't go on unanswered in the Quran, the Muslim Book of God, and that's been my pillar for me, and has helped me to uncondition from all these, societal sort of labeling expectations and cultural and misinterpreted religious ones as well.
Thank you. Anyone else feel that they've had to work through that kind of identity crisis, in a sense, and really come to being that point of light? Anyone else like to comment? You've all passed through it, and we're all there. No? Okay, no, that's fine. I think. Okay, let me ask something that's related to our vision of the world. What is your, what is your vision of the future? Where do you think we're going, and how do you contribute to that? Can we make a difference? A final question before the questions afterwards from all of you.
Well, I think we do make a difference just by being who we are and doing this work and sharing it. we're moving, we're moving very fast all the time. And that's why we have to keep balance, because we're always. But I think in answer to the more practical question, of course, we don't know what's going to happen, but looking at the environmental crisis, looking at the political crisis, the financial institutions, the crisis in medicine. We're in, for example, the golden age of medicine. Our lifespan is increasing every 2 years or whatever. But we generally feel the medical healthcare is in a crisis. Every developed country has this sense of being in a crisis. So the question is, we have to make a radical change. Resources are limited. Our psychological resilience is limited. We're trying to do too much and use too much and spend too much and watch too much, and so the question is, are we going to be able to learn that? Well, there are two ways of learning it. One is through wisdom, through contact with other people, through communities, through a teaching that goes out and touches us when we're young and that we grow up with. And the other way is through hitting the brick wall and going over the edge and having a collapse, a general collapse, which has happened before in human history. We've recovered. And we've learned a little bit from it before we start making the same mistakes again. So I think we don't know which of those it's going to be. The hopeful sign is that there are more people meditating today than ever before. It says in the Book of Wisdom, the hope for the salvation of the world lies in the greatest number of wise people.
Beautiful.
It doesn't say how many. But there are certainly probably more people, still, I don't know, a small fraction of the population, but there are more people who are attuned to this. I think the answer lies with discovering, which we have discovered, that children can meditate, and they love to meditate, and they ask to meditate, and they meditate at home. And I was given great hope the other day, talking to a little 10-year-old girl, and I said, "Do you meditate?" And I love meditation, she said. I said, "Do you meditate at home?" She said, "Yes." I said, "When do you meditate at home?" And she thought for a moment and she said, "Whenever I have a fight with my sister."
That's great.
I mean, that's wisdom for the world.
Yeah. Thank you. Would you all like to comment, please? Just 1 minute.
I think the reason why identity is so important to me is because if you don't go inward and know yourself, you won't know how to respond to the crises in the world. And I think it's really important to know where you play your part in the world, and I would definitely like to see more of that. And for me, that being that kind of ambassador in the world, and I think we all are ambassadors of the world, and serving those parts of the world through your talents or whoever you are, whoever you want to become. For me, that is worshipping God, and so I think that might look different on everyone, but that's because we're all. We're all a makeup of different experiences and
unique.
Yeah.
Jeremy?
Back to your point about vision. I haven't got a vision for the future, but the only certainty I know is that the world can only be changed by individuals. So the more people that meditate, as you were saying, the more people that practice being truthful, the better chance we've got. And these catastrophes that take place in human history take place because too many people have just closed their eyes to what was going on. And so, example is the only way forward.
Beautiful, thank you.
But then those individuals create groups, communities, physical centres, Brahma Kumaris.
Yes, I totally agree with that, because then when we paused at the outset of this, the power of our pause was many times greater than me doing it on my own. So I do agree, the groups come together. But yes, okay.
We have to draw to close now. Mina, last word?
Last word, the way I see future is that spring is coming. We're in the winter where it's darkness and cold, but it won't last long.
Lovely words of hope, thank you. So, big thank you to our panel for this first part. And I think we've heard a lot of wisdom, a lot of points of light. I hope a few have been going off in your brain, or in your soul, I should say. So please stay on the stage. We will now have some live music, and after that there will be tea for everyone. But over tea, we'd like you to think of questions you would like to ask the panel, because after tea there's about 35 minutes for questions. There's a pieces of paper at the back as you leave the room. If you have an instant question and you can write it right away before you go for tea, great. Don't think too much while you're hearing the music. We don't want you to miss this music. But if you can write down your questions, and then after tea we'll have a chance for those questions to be asked to the panel. And so I'd like to welcome Pearls of Islam, a very dynamic duo whose music and sounds are created by traditional instruments and a great spirit. And their music has been described by many listeners as music from the heart to the heart. And I first heard you a few years ago. I was really quite taken with what you do and the spirit of it. And so please welcome, I hope I say your names right, Shakina Barakan and Rabia Abdallah, the Pearls of Islam, to give us some music now. Thank you so much.
I do apologise that we've got our backs to you.
Oh, no problem. The spirit radiates from all sides, no problem.
Little prayer in Arabic. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya Badrati, Ya Badrati, min hazakun lak kamali. ماذا يعاب برعا علا كم قالي يا بدراتي
لك مالي. ماذا يعاب ماذا يعاب برعا علا كما قالي. أنت الذي أشرقت في أفق العلا. أنت الذي أشرقت في أفق العلا. فما حوت بالأنوار كل ضلال. الله الله يا بدرتيم يا بدرتيم من حاز كل كمالي. ماذا يعاب ماذا يعاب برعا علا كما قالي. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله.
So it's a pleasure. Salams, peace, love, sending salams and peace to everyone here today. It's a pleasure to be here, mashallah. My name is Sakina, this is Rabia. We're going to sing a couple of nasheeds, a couple of songs. Feel free to join in. We always like to encourage people to join in with us because it's so much better rather than kind of sitting here and everyone just watching us. So feel free to join in. It's not a problem at all. If you want to clap, you can clap. If you want to sing, honestly, no problem at all. You can sing along as well. If you want to hum, do as you please. It's nice that we do it together.
Okay, so we we start with this because it's a nice way of everyone joining in. It's a prayer, it's a dua, but it's like a freestyle dua. So we all kind of get to just be like, yeah. So we're asking Allah. I always like to use the name Allah because for many, the name Allah, we feel like that name has been misused, and we're just trying to kind of really use it in the way that we feel like it's such a beautiful name for God, for the divine. So the names in Islam, we have 99 names of Allah that we know as humans, as beings of this earth. We know 99 names of Allah, but there's endless names for the divine, like so many different names. Like we can't have so many different names. Beautiful saying, as many hearts, that's how many names there are, but even more. So we're gonna ask you if you would like to sing with us. Allah is the Arabic name for God or for the divine. And we're using about 4 different names. We're saying Ya Salam, which means peace. We're asking Allah this place is a very peaceful, but even more peace. We came in from traffic and we were like, so much peace. So may Allah fill this space with even more peace, with Ya Rahman, mercy, and kindness and love. Just may Allah shower us with all these beautiful attributes: mercy, kindness, love, peace, everything. So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And like Sakina said, if you want to sing, sing. If you don't want to sing, then hum. If you don't want to hum, then clap. If you don't want to clap with your hands, then smile, right? And if you don't want to smile with your face, right, which I think is a beautiful thing to do, but if you don't want to smile with your face, then smile with your heart, right? And if smiling with the heart is not that, if you're not able to, that's fine, then just breathe. Yeah, so that way everyone is participating. Whether you like it or not, you're participating in this song, right? So Bismillah. And we sing Allah, Allahu, Allah, Allah,
Allah, Allahu, Allah.
Or if there's a name of the divine that you have that you want to sing along, please, by all means.
Allah, 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 Allahu, Allah, Allah.
And we sing
Allah, Allahu, Allah, 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 Allahu, Allah, Allah, Allah.
Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Salam, Ya Wadud, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Salam, Ya Wadud. And we sing
Allah, Allahu, Allah, 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 Allahu, Allah, 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 Allahu, Allah, 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 Allahu, Allah, Allah, Allah.
Ya Allah, shower us with your mercy, your kindness, and your love. And we say, Ya Allah, shower us with your mercy, your kindness, your peace, and your love. And we're singing
Allah, Allahu, Allah, 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 Allahu, Allah, 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 Allahu, Allah, 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 Allahu, Allah, Allah.
Ya Allah, as we sit here in this beautiful gathering with these beautiful souls, Ameen, in Kilburn, in West London, Ya Allah, bless them all.
Ameen.
Ya Allah, shower us with your nur, your light, your light.
Ameen.
Surround us with your light, behind us, in front of us, inside us, and around us. And we're singing
Allah, Allahu, Allah, 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 Allahu, Allah, Allah.
MashaAllah. Thank you so much for joining us. I feel like we should take this on tour and or X Factor or something. I feel like it can work. I can see this working, mashallah. So this is a piece that we weren't actually going to do, but as we sat and we were listening to everything that was being said, and I just thank you all. I'm so sorry that the back of my it just kind of resonated with us. There's a Sufi poet called Bulla Shah. Has anyone heard of Bulla Shah? Yeah, Bulla Shah. And I came across him, technology, but I came across him on the Coke sessions on YouTube. I said, some amazing stuff. And, well, not him, because he's like how many centuries ago, but somebody was singing his poetry. And this particular poem is called the One Aleph. It's called One Aleph, Ik Aleph. And it's reminding us all that everything, all you need is God, right? All you need is Allah, God, the divine. In the poem, it says about how we can get carried away with the external things. You know, okay, we have to make sure we go to the temple. We have to make sure we're reading this. We have to make sure we're doing this. But neglecting the essence of these actions. So he would say, you read so many books, but you never read your heart. You know, you rush to the holy shrines, but you never enter the shrine that's in your heart. Every day you're fighting shaitan, you're fighting the devil, but you're never fighting your own ego. And he's saying, like, you try and grab what's in the sky, but you're never grabbing hold of what's inside. You know, there's this really kind of, and I felt like it resonated with what was being said about finding that inner light, or connecting to that inner light, or seeing that inner light, because it's always there. And knowing that everything that we're doing is nur, you know, with intention. So Bismillah. Again, the same rules apply. Even you don't need to know the words to sing along, you know, like just hum along or sing whatever comes to your heart. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Hu Allah, Hu Allah, Hu Allah, Hu Allah, Hu Allah, Hu Allah, Hu.
You read so many books to know it all, and yet you fail to ever read your heart at all. You rush to the holy shrines to play your part, and yet you fail to ever enter the shrine that's in your heart. Every day you fight shaitan, but you never fight your own ego. You are quick to attack the evil one, but your pride is a battle you have not won. You try and grab what's in the sky, but you never grab hold of what's inside. Let the race end, my friend.
Stop trying to be the one who knows. 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 Stop trying to be the one who knows.
What's in the sky, but you never grab hold of what's inside. Let the race end, my friend. Stop it all, my friend. Just know, my friend, that you don't know, my friend. Allah's the one who knows. Only Allah. Only the divine is the one who knows.
Allah, 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 Allah,
Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah,
Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. We're just going to close and do our last piece. This piece is called Mercy. Oh, we might change it.
Okay.
Let's do Mercy. Oh, someone did Mercy.
Okay, yeah, we'll do Mercy.
We're going to do Mercy. And mercy is such a beautiful word, just the word of it, mercy. And it's something that connects all of us together. Of course, love connects us all together as well. Whether we know each other or not, it's the mercy and it's the love that connects us together. So this is dedicated to that mercy, and may we be beacons of mercy, and may mercy rain down upon every single one of us in good times and in hard times as well. So this is mercy. Need your mercy. Yes, I need your mercy. Yes, I want your mercy. And I feel your mercy. Yes, I feel your mercy. 'Cause it's all around me.
And yet again I find myself on my knees, praying, Ya Allah, please forgive me with your mercy, your endless mercy. I find myself unable to speak. I am humbled as I seek your mercy from your merciful ocean.
And I need your mercy. Yes, I need your mercy. Yes, I want your mercy. And I feel your mercy. Yes, I feel your mercy. 'Cause it's all around me.
Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, open your doors to a servant like me. Ya Allah, please, what am I without your mercy? These tears that flow down these cheeks, I embrace them, 'cause I know they're from your mercy, from your merciful ocean.
And I need your mercy.
I need your mercy.
Yes, I need your mercy. Yes, I want your mercy.
Your mercy, mercy, mercy.
And I feel your mercy. Yes, I feel your mercy. 'Cause it's all around me. So for my du'as and my supplication, I raise my hands and I fall down in prostration, weak at my knees as my tears fall free. Truly you have saved me. You know my thoughts and my difficulties, and you place love where I thought it was hard to reach. Forever drowning in what you've given me, a drop from the oceans of mercy. Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
I feel your mercy.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
shower us with your mercy.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
your mercy.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
your mercy.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
I need your mercy.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
And it's all around me.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
Your mercy, 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 mercy.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
So please,
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
we're gonna ask you to sing with us.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
And we're saying, Ya Rahman is the
Ya
merciful.
Rahmanu,
Shower your
Ya
mercy.
Rahim,
Ya Rahim is the kindness.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
Shall we give it a go? Yeah.
Ya Rahmanu,
So the drums are gonna come in and then we're gonna just go like, yeah.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
We feel your mercy.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
And it's all around us.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
And then we're going to sing.
Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim,
your mercy. Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim. And it's all around us. Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim. In the birds and in the trees. Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim. And even in the breeze that passes us. Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim. And in all of your smiling faces. Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim. Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Blown away by it. And it made me think, who would want to just be an individual on their own when there's all this to enjoy and to discover all these wonderful things? So I hope during the break that not only will you enjoy a cup of tea, but you will enjoy a cup of tea with a new friend. And you'll find lots of them. So off we go. Thank you. Just now, we're going to have a question and answer session. There were lots of bits of paper that came up, and I know that Rachel and Maureen have been sorting them out, so I'm going to just invite the panel to come back up straight away. I'd also like to welcome back those who are following us on the internet. Very exciting, isn't it? I know there are 65 BK centres that are watching this, so very good. Wherever you are. Have lots of people.
Welcome back to everyone. Perhaps we'll just pause for a moment of silence together to come back, absorb the atmosphere, and be ready. Thank you. Those moments are very beautiful, aren't they? I was thinking that earlier on we had a lot of things came out that were quite deep, actually, in terms of the journeys that everybody is on, and I'm sure many things resonated with you, and that's evident also through the questions that have come. But I was also thinking how we were seeing a little bit of the contrast of East and West. You know, they say, if something happens, in the West they say, don't just sit there, do something. And in the East they say, don't do anything, just sit there. But we want the balance between the two, right? So we have a few questions, so let's get into that. And this first one is a question for everyone who'd like to give a brief answer to. So the two go together. What is your greatest tip for meditation? And along with that, any advice for someone who finds that meditation does... Whoops. Any advice for someone who finds that meditation does not go deep? So, some advice on that. Who would... Please, yes, yes.
I don't know if it's working.
Yes.
It's working, sorry. So, of course, as always, I can only speak from my own experience, and the lessons I've learned from my religion, and that is, as some of you might know, we structure our days through prayer. And there's the morning prayer, there's the afternoon prayer, the before sunset prayer, the after sunset prayer, and then the night prayer. And what I found is that praying in these days, you know, like busying yourself with the world and then coming back from society, back into that safe spot, that, you know, seeking refuge in God, and it just kind of takes you away from all the, you know, the hustle and bustle, and back to, you know, the reality of the soul. So maybe you can try and structure your days in that sense. So don't only try and meditate once a day, maybe try and do more times a day, and that's it's helped me with that.
Great, very practical. Thank you. Who else would like to?
First tip is don't give up. I don't care how bad it is, do not give up. Secondly, any impediment that arises is there to help you. It's only arisen for you to give it up. So every one of them is deliberately placed there for you to surrender it. And the third thing is, the enemy of meditation is discouragement. So don't believe you don't go deep.
Excellent, thank you. Mina.
I continue with, or agree with what Salina said. Meditation is, in my own experience, it's not something that I do every Sunday morning or every day evening. But it's a way of life. So it's something that, to understand the mind, how it works, and what I do with it during the day, because that then affects my meditation practice, or when I sit for meditation. So it's to do with seeing your day and what goes in your mind the whole day. And the second question was,
Wellness tips, and what if meditation doesn't go deep?
Yeah, I think it's to do with, well, there's two things. One is that we tend to think of a result or an idea of what it would be like if I was in my deep meditation. So that's instantly an expectation, so of expecting something to happen. So again, letting go of that expectation, so letting go of a way that you would experience something, and allowing it to actually really happen, what it happens when you're meditating or go deep. So the idea of meditation and actually experiencing peace or love or happiness, it's sometimes different and sometimes better.
Thank you. Father?
Well, on the back of all of those wise pieces of advice, I would just say, do it. Do it with others. And the practice of meditation is a way of overcoming our imprisonment in the world of duality. So we think we're inside, or we think we're outside, and we get trapped in those dualities. And I think meditating alone should open up to you a sense of connection with all other meditators in all other faiths throughout the world. And meditating with others in your weekly group or in any group should make you realize this is a solitary practice that you must do for yourself. No one can do it for you. So solitude and community become the two sides of the same coin. And I think the ego can't keep up with that. So the ego gradually diminishes, or at least you're able to catch it before it does too much damage.
Thank you, just as well. Right? Thank you, very beautiful. This is a question for Salina and Father Laurence in particular. I love how you've both spoken about serving your purpose, but what happens when pain, in brackets like poor mental health, gets in the way? Thank you.
I think everyone once in their lives deals with something drastic, and that can really impact mental health. And what you find when you're experiencing low mood is that your concentration levels fluctuate, and mostly it's always low, and you're unable to focus. And I think the way the mind works, if I'm to come from a mental health perspective, the way the mind works is that when it recognizes a problem, it wants to respond. And the way you put that at bay, because sometimes you can't deal with something instantly, sometimes you need to get a task done, and that task might be huge, that might be your purpose. And sometimes we might not understand what our purpose is, because we might be hindering ourselves from learning what that is and being on that journey, because there's so many other things to deal with that's on our minds. So the way to put those thoughts at bay, is you have to tell your mind that the mind is very logical. So you have to tell your mind that it will be dealt with. Maybe not today, but you can even, if you want to get very technical and logical, you can even say maybe give it a date. It's Thursday. So it's at bay, and now it can rest. And now you can awake. Now the other parts of you can awaken. Your creativity, your your other aspects of your thought processes. So I would advise maybe learn how to deal with what the challenges you're facing. There's so many services out there today, therapy, CBT, it's tailored and designed to your needs, and I think that will allow you to that will give you space to search for your purpose.
Right, so sort of almost tricking your mind almost to say you're going to put it on hold, and now you get on with what you have to do.
Yeah, and I would add, good planning really does help. That's one of the first steps a lot of people use to sort of get themselves back up on the day-to-day tasks that they find difficult to do.
Step by step.
Yeah.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you. Thank you. I think when you find yourself engaged on a good work, you believe in it, you want it to happen. So you want to give it everything you've got, and then take everything of yourself out of it. So your ego attachment to success or failure, you take that out of it, and takes some reflection and a lot of meditation and a lot of sharing with others. So it's not your work then. And then you are able to give yourself to it. And also, I think what I learned is, took me a long time, I'm still learning I suppose, but is not to be frightened of calculated risks, and not to be frightened of making mistakes. Because mistakes, if they're done in good faith, can always be a change of direction rather than the end of the matter. I think it's vital to feel that whatever work you are involved in is God's work, and that you are serving it with your faults. In the New Testament, St. Paul has a passage where he says, he described a very high mystical experience, and then he says, and then God gave me this thorn in the flesh. We don't know what it was, but has anybody here not got a thorn in the flesh? You may not want to talk about it, but we know we all have one, or maybe more than one. So he said he prayed to God several times to take this thorn in the flesh away, so he could be a good executive. He could be a good worker. He would achieve his ideal of success and performance and do a great work for God. And that didn't happen. And then he got the insight that, which he expressed by saying, God told him, that's not up to you. That God's power is revealed in human weakness. So it's by accepting your fault, not being ashamed of it, but maybe prudent about it, but not being ashamed of it, and not feeling that it's getting in the way, provided you accept it. It's surprising how it can keep you humble and keep you down to earth and make you aware that it's not all your own work. I think that was a good insight for anyone.
Thank you, thank you. Mina, Jeremy, would you like to comment at all?
No, I think we've had very good replies.
Yeah. Thank you. I hope that's been helpful for everybody, not obviously only the person asking the question, for all of us. Thank you. This is a question for Jeremy, and there's another one mainly for Jeremy, so I'll ask the two together. Often we are told, or we interpret, that there is a conflict between the material world, in brackets capitalism, and spirituality. You being in advertising, have you ever felt that conflict inhibiting you in your work on your spiritual journey? And along with that, the image of the advertising industry is one of a hard-hitting business environment. How, as the quiet man, do you equate your philosophy with the topics we have explored today with the business environment? So I suppose that thing with business environment is also general, but particularly to do with the advertising. So that's okay for you to answer.
Okay. I haven't found a conflict.
Interesting.
From the outside, advertising has got, it's poorly advertised, to be honest. And if you look at programs or read about it, there's a world I'm still waiting to explore. Nobody's ever tried to bribe me. I haven't had women thrust at me. All these things that drink has not sort of I don't have any drink in the office. It's a dull world compared to the image that the world has of it. So I'm sorry to disappoint anyone that's thinking of going into it. For these reasons, it ain't like that. Basically, advertising, you've got a blank piece of paper and you've got a client waiting for you to put something on it. And the less of you that's present, the better it is. So it's not dissimilar to any other practice that we do. The easier it will be to understand the client's problems, his ambitions, if you don't come into it. And just look at the overall picture. If we want lots of people to work, then we need lots of people to buy their products. If you want lots of people to buy their products, you've got to tell them. Now, if you're all going to have a cottage industry and everyone's going to have very individual stuff, fine, you could probably do away with the oil of advertising. But if you want mass employment like we have, or mass consumption like we have, you need a bit of Meccano, a bit of glue, a bit of something holding them together. And that's what advertising does. And I haven't found any conflict. I find it pays the rent, clothes the children, and I enjoy it. Sorry.
Well, why not enjoy what you do? Of course.
I like seeing something arise out of nowhere. The joy that gives is untold. There was nothing, and it's suddenly there.
I mean, I probably shouldn't ask this question, but I will. Do you ever think about what you're advertising, in that moral sense, And I'm not accusing in that sense, I'm just asking, does that ever cause any, or it's just whatever needs to happen, happens?
I've advertised chickens. Sorry, God. So as a vegetarian, I have sold things that I wouldn't consume.
Indeed, yeah.
Sorry about that. But we don't see ourselves as moral arbitrators, to be honest.
Sure.
But there are areas that we would not touch, which we thought was amoral. Like there was a case recently of a company where they were sowing the seeds of discord in South Africa. We would not do that.
Yeah,
because
sure, of course.
I love what Mandela produced there, and anything that undid that would be against it. We would not do it. But having said that, we don't sit there and sort of pontificate on what the client should or should not be doing in terms of morality.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? This always interests me. Could you advertise something that would not sell? Could you advertise meditation in the way that we are honestly understanding it and talking about it today, not as some, package fad, do 3 weeks of meditation and you'll become perfect?
Should we all start taking notes now?
So can you sell something that is not commercially viable? Not sell it, but can you promote it?
Well, oddly enough, I had an email this last week from the school in New York saying that meditation over there has become big business, which I found a wee bit distressing, to be honest.
Exactly,
because one thing you need to do with as pure a motive or as no motive as possible, and that's meditation.
I know.
So I find it a bit like the philosophy in meditation. We can advertise its presence, and just be as clean and as straightforward about it as it is about itself.
So that would, what often seems to me is that it works by attraction rather than by promotion. So you have to have a little bit of promotion so that people can be attracted by it, I suppose. But now, couldn't you apply that then to even to the commercial field to some degree? In other words, you promote, advertise things that people will be attracted to for the right reasons, not because it's giving them a fantasy that this is going to make them perfectly happy or beautiful or successful. But
you've just described how good advertising works.
How good advertising works? Yes.
Because
provided you're advertising the right things. Then.
Yeah, no, but if you're selling a car, you've got to describe it in a way that the sort of people who are likely to buy that sort of car are likely to respond. So. But there's an old saying in advertising, sort of a bit of a cliche, but the worst thing you can do for a bad product is advertise it well. Because people will very quickly find out it's rubbish.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. No, it's a very interesting.
I think you ought to become a politician. you could turn the public view of politicians around very quickly. No, I understand what you say. It makes sense.
But I feel it's an interesting insight and a little bit reassuring, actually, to know that all these principles, well, some principles are there. But Cindy, you were going to say something, I think.
Sorry, I'm a bit dyslexic and I'm not wired quite. Can you just explain that as if I was a 9-year-old, what you just said? You say that if you advertise something well, people will go out of their way subconsciously to see what's wrong with it.
No, you're too clever. I've
never been called that before.
This is the first, because it's true. If you advertise something really well, and let's say, and it's a bad product, and let's say lots of people go out and buy the product, they very quickly discover it was rubbish, and then so your sales will go straight through the floor. So the public are not stupid; they're as bright as we are. I must tell you that. And I personally think it's wrong and, dare I say, offensive to think that they're not intelligent. They are, and the mass of the public, I trust it implicitly. I really do.
You weren't working on Brexit, were you?
Okay, here we go. The election before Brexit, they came into the surgery and they didn't take the medicine. On Brexit, they wouldn't even come in the surgery.
So can I just ask you another question? So if I came to you with a great product, you wouldn't put it out there as a good product?
If you came with a great product, we'd all jump up and down and help you sell it.
But I'm missing a beat here. I'm not being simple. I'm missing some. I genuinely am not. I'm really confused.
If there's a product that isn't good and you advertise it well, you're deceiving people. And people, when they get to the product, won't be deceived. They will see it for what it is. So it's not a good thing to do, right?
And that's it, and never buy it again. So let's say your cornflakes are all flat, and people go out and buy them and discover they're all flat, not nice and crinkly. That's the worst thing that can happen, because they'll never come near you again.
So the worst thing you can do is to advertise a bad product well. That's it.
So that is a bit like the government. They say they're going to do something and they don't do nothing, right?
Okay, another story.
Okay, I think we can get into a lot of areas of discussion here. And in a way, I suppose it's not really about advertising, but it is a little bit about sharing, promoting. Whilst the value of inner peace is not questioned, how is this best conveyed to a wider audience and to the decision makers of the world?
Can you repeat that?
Yes. Whilst the value of inner peace is not questioned, how is this best conveyed to a wider audience and to the decision makers of the world? Inner peace. It's if we can solve this, we will be going a long way. No, but there will be answers, I'm sure. Inspiration.
I think one-to-one. If you can find one person who's ready for this, you can't convince them by advertising or by logic or argument, but if they're ready, then they understand it, then they begin to practice, and they communicate it within their network, within their organization. And after a year or two, they start having the courage to speak about it openly in a way that they find appropriate. And that can change the culture of a multinational corporation over time. So it's the parable of the sower. You have to keep sowing the seed.
Thank you. Anyone want to comment? You have any?
I think I'll say similar to what you've already said, that we're so interconnected and interlinked into the world. So if one chooses to practice that in their own life, it will have ripple effect into the atmosphere and the world around them.
Please, yes.
Maybe I'm saying the same thing. I think you keep going. There were in Cameron's government, I think there were 3 people who were initiated into meditation. And 20 years ago that would be unthinkable. Whether they're practicing regularly or not, I don't know. But there were 3 people who at one time or another had meditated and had spoken about it. So you keep going. And
Yeah, I think I'd also like to add, when you bring people into a certain atmosphere that's safe and enabling, things start to wake up in them and they begin to get more in touch with what really is meaningful to them. And they, it's about going behind the layers of fears, really, isn't it? To touch the truth inside, then change can happen. So I've witnessed that too. If I'm allowed to give an answer.
Yes. No, I mean, we're very aware of the dangers and the shortfall of the internet, but it's a tremendous way of communication, and it has liberated and touched, enriched, saved so many people. we should really, for all its faults, we should see it as one of the great assets that we have for this work.
I have to say, the head of our organisation, Dadi Janki, she's nearly 102 now, very active, and she's all for using these things for good. And she loves her mobile phone, she answers her email. I mean, she doesn't personally type her emails, but she knows the value of using technology in the right way.
It reminded me of I was talking with visiting the community of Sacred Heart nuns who were retired, but they were very old, very, very old. And every year, New Year's Day, they committed to learning something new every year. And one sister said she was going to learn to do email. You know, she was 105 or something.
Oh my goodness, isn't that wonderful?
The only time they got scared was when there was a 100-year-old who said she wanted to learn to drive.
But there's spirit for you. Great. Okay, so one more question. I have one more question, actually. I think the question I would like to ask. We've been talking a lot about peace, but what about love? And are they connected? When you are peaceful, are you also loving? That's made everybody think, hasn't it? Interesting.
Okay, I'll go first. Love is another word for God, and it's the source of the creation. It's enduring power, and it returns to love.
Thank you.
I think when you're peaceful, sorry, no.
No, please, it's fine.
Well, very short. When you're peaceful, you can't have fear. And the opposite of love is fear. So if you have no fear, there can only be love.
Thank you.
I think that the closer you are to your Creator, the sisters that came here before, they mentioned that in Islam there's 99 names. We recognized, we attribute certain qualities to God, and the closer you are to Him, the more you sort of get to have those, sort of extract those qualities, because that is, the closer you are to Him, the nearer you are to Him, rather, the more, the closer you also are to those attributes. And I feel like there's this, you get to experience all of those things, and when it's inside of you, you can also, you can also give. You can also give back, sorry. I wouldn't say that if you're not at peace, you can't be loving, but I think that being closer to God definitely makes you more peaceful, and you sort of stretch your capacity to give more, and that's my understanding of it right now. It might change.
Thank you. Mina, you want to?
My experience of the purest love is when I had connection, or when I have connection with the higher source. But in generally, there's a lot of connotations about love in many ways. So I sometimes don't use the word love, but I use more of harmony. When this head and the heart are in harmony, I feel that I am in the state of love. And it's so connected that when that is there, then the peace naturally flows. And I experience that.
Thank you. I'd like us just to pause for a moment, because we've heard some very profound things. I've been hearing them all afternoon. Let's just just pause for a moment and reflect. Thank you. So we've Sister Jayanti began talking about harmony. Actually, it's again come up, and a beautiful thought to close the panel with. And I'd like to thank all of you very, very much. I'd like to thank all of you for your questions, but really, I think we're very grateful that you were willing to really share about your spiritual journeys with us in a very authentic way. So thank you, all of you, very, very much. And
thank you.
We will thank you. So please, you remain on the stage, but I'm going to leave the stage and Sister Jayanti will come here. It's not an optical illusion that you have another person in white. We're actually going to swap places. I'll hand over to Sister Jayanti and then Father Laurence to close the afternoon, or nearly close the afternoon, just a couple of other things after that. So thank you again.
I've enjoyed the afternoon immensely. Do you all feel the same? And it was just incredible to see, on the one side, the variety of backgrounds that you all represent, and yet this perfect harmony of thinking and all moving in the same direction. One of our favorite analogies is of thinking of God as the seed of the human tree. And the tree has beautiful, big, strong branches and many, many leaves. And so the branches are the different traditions to which we belong, but they all come from that one seed. And so it's been a very beautiful demonstration of that, all thoughts leading us back again to the source, to that one seed, the parent of humanity. And we've been hearing from Father Laurence words of wisdom and insights, but I'd like to invite Father Laurence to share with us some idea about inner freedom and what this means to you, and the journey you've had to be able to acquire it. And so I look forward to hearing from a master of silence, Father Laurence.
Well, that puts me on the spot, doesn't it? Well, rather like Jeremy was born of a vegetarian mother. I inherited the name Freeman, so maybe that had an influence on me. You know, where the spirit is released and unblocked, there is liberty. And until we experience that unblocking of the spirit within our own consciousness, in other words, I mean, we spend so much time locked into two dimensions of our physical and psychological nature that our education and our institutions today really don't give much time or respect to the spiritual dimension. But when that dimension opens up for us, it may open up through suffering, through love, through creativity, through mistakes, through success, through life really. But it will out, it will have to come out in some way. And good education, good teachers, good friends, good company will help that birthing of this spiritual dimension. It won't be without pain, of course, but when it happens, we feel joy. And then I think but before that happens, we conceive of freedom as limited to those two other dimensions of body and mind alone, so that we think that freedom is to do what I want to do, maybe up to the point where it may hurt somebody else, but if we are unbalanced, then we may think that we can do what we want to do, even if it hurts somebody else. And there's a lot of that around. And then there's the other kind of freedom, which is about thinking what I want. And if I believe this to be the case, then it's true. I have the right, I have the freedom to believe this, even if it is clearly, to any normal, rational person, untrue. It's a prejudice, it's a denial of the truth. So it's vital that we open up this transcendent or integrative or the spiritual dimension, because otherwise we don't know what freedom really means. And the freedom remains constricted to the operation of our ego, which is our self-conscious, self-centeredness, our self-interest, where we basically act and feel as if we are the center of the universe, and everything revolves around me and my desires or my fears. The ego specializes in desires, fantasies, and fears. So opening up this spiritual dimension is the great art of rearing the young, of educating society, of managing politics, corporations, everything. We have to see everything as involved in allowing people the best possible conditions for discovering the spiritual dimension in themselves. And then there are special groups, like as we represent here today, who concentrate on that very specifically in terms of spiritual practice, spiritual teaching, the great wisdom traditions. And anyone who is touched by those or involved in that work will know, of course, that the spiritual dimension is not limited to any one manifestation, and that it always points to what we might call the heart, and the heart is the place where we are free to be ourselves. We don't have to justify ourselves, live up to any image, any performance status or anything, where we can just be ourselves. And that experience of being, I think, is transformative of the mind, of consciousness, and even the body. And so from that work that we've come back to many times in this conversation of meditation, we become freer. And we may be aware of that in very small ways at first. You know, not so frightened of spiders, or you're not so frightened of the disaster that would happen if you miss your plane, or so frightened of rejection, or frightened of other people's negative opinions about you, or frightened of, you know, all sorts of neurotic things that that lock us up. And, or, you know, I remember when I was a novice, I had to, you know, I was told to read at Mass at the church. And I don't think I'd ever, I mean, I wasn't abnormally self-conscious, but I was very nervous about that, but just being in a religious environment, and hadn't maybe done that before, and I thought everyone would look at me wearing my habit, you know, as a novice. And then I mentioned it to my teacher, so that's why it's so important to have a teacher. So I mentioned it to my teacher, John Main, and he said, "Who do you think's looking at you?" And in those few words, he just, you know, he made, you know, swept it away. That fear that locks you up. And I've met, you know, I see in myself, and I've met, you know, innumerable people for whom this practice of meditation has, little by little, chipped away at those icicles of fear that keep us trapped. And the basic freedom to be is always expressed in the freedom to love. To express one's love in an appropriate way, and equally to receive it in an appropriate way. And that's the real litmus test of freedom, I think.
I found that very, very helpful. Thank you. And I wonder if I could ask you to lead us into a reflection.
You mean, what is it? What do you mean?
Contemplation.
Oh, into a time of silence.
Yeah.
Okay. And will you time the silence then? How long do we want to meditate for? Okay. Right. Okay. Well, let's take a few moments to allow ourselves to be. To feel our physical presence, the body is the sign, the sacrament, the manifestation of us, of our unique self. And to adjust our posture to reflect that combination of alertness, of wakefulness, and of ease and relaxation. So let's just sit for a moment upright and alert, but also relaxed, relaxing our shoulders, relaxing the muscles of our face. Let's be conscious of the friendship that is around us. There is not one of us here who would be unfriendly if we opened ourselves to them. And to allow ourselves then to become friendly with ourselves. We don't have to judge, reject, or evaluate ourselves. And the first step to that would simply be to pay attention to our breath, which links the mind and the body so naturally. As we breathe in the gift of life from its mysterious source. And because it is a gift, we cannot hold it, we cannot hoard it or possess it. Every breath we receive, we have to give away. We breathe out. And that cycle of breathing opens us to the gift of being itself, the gift of consciousness. And to go a little deeper now, to sort of sink an anchor a little bit, and to help us to lay aside our thoughts. That's how the early monks described meditation, as the laying aside of thoughts. So we don't repress them, we don't fight them, but we don't entertain them either. We simply lay them aside gently, in the way that the sea lays aside its waves as they hit the shore. We can do this by taking a sacred word or mantra and repeating it continuously, gently, in mind and heart, giving our full attention to this word, not paying attention to any thought or object or image or plan, but pure attention. The pure attention with which we repeat the word lovingly, faithfully, and continuously. Now it's, while keeping the mind and the heart, let's allow our thoughts to return peacefully, and to allow words to flow from our heart.
Well, it says on the paper, closing remarks. And the only remark is how remarkable it's been. And the question that came across my mind was, who did this thing? And there are people, of course, and I'm going to thank you all very much indeed. But really, when you look at life and you look at events like this, all you can really say is, I was there. That's what the individual or the ego, that's all it is, a little light presence at events. And it has been simply marvellous. I'm going to get my helper to help me. Oh, we do that first. So this is the most exciting thing, really. I'm going to get Cindy to bring her picture and perhaps tell us a little bit about how it is and what it is.
It's a bit wet.
Shall I hold it from the back and then you could just say something about it?
Right.
Wow. You will get to see it.
Sorry. First of all, it's a real privilege to be here. Or is it a bit wet? Georgina Long asked me, it's a bit wet on the bottom, be careful. Yeah, be careful, because I don't want... a couple of weeks ago said how amazing Elizabeth is, just the day, and said, would I like to come along and do a painting with the energy of the room? So first of all, Georgina Long, thank you for inviting me. I feel very privileged to be here. And thank you all, because it's all through your energy and life force that has created this painting. So I'll just explain what I channeled. And by saying what I channeled is I sat on the chair and I visualized, or someone above there visualized for me what it is. And basically they told me the tree is the oneness of all of us. The water, without water, we wouldn't exist. The roots is how we connect right the way through the oneness, our heart. And here you have, they told me to do the moon with the points of light and the sun, which is in balance. And someone who's in the audience, I won't mention her name, she'll get embarrassed, mentioned to me the other day, she's an amazing woman. She said, Cindy, I said, do you think I'm going a bit crazy, Elise? I'm doing a bit of healing and channeling and everything, and I'm hearing things. And she said, yes, but don't worry, because that's when you get to nothingness. So here is white. So nothing really, really matters. We're connected from up there. By the way, I know nothing, okay? I'm a self-taught artist, I know nothing. But what I feel is we're connected from up there right the way through there. And guess what? We're meant to enjoy being different, having different cultures, having ups and downs and funny moments, because you were all here through love, through your parents loving each other. So whenever you have a bad moment, remember, you're here through love, and that's it.
Well, I think that's absolutely marvellous. I did read that the Queen has got got a picture of Cindy's in her private quarters of all the corgis, and you must look at her website because there are the corgis, and they're just heaven. Anyway, I'm going to ask my
I wanted to say something to you. Sorry, on behalf of Sister Jayanti and the Brahma Kumaris, they wanted you to have this painting.
Wow. Yes. I might let it get dry. I'm thrilled. I'm really absolutely wow. Where's my husband? Is he there? He's there. Look. Really exciting. Now, Rachel, could you be my helper? If you bring the flowers. You haven't all got the same thing, but you've all got something slightly different. So this is for my very dear Sister Jayanti. I wish I could keep you in my pocket all the time.
We're connected all the time.
I'm going to come up on the stage. Could you please, for the lovely ladies?
Space.
Thank you so much.
That's for Jeremy. This is very appropriate. That is for Jeremy. And this is for Father Laurence. And I would particularly like to thank Georgina, Toots and Rachel so much. And you all get a bunch of flowers, and so does Maureen. Now, the very best thing about coming to the Brahma Kumaris is that they give you a treat at the end. A treat and a blessing. And it says on the programme, I'm sorry, that's my washing basket. And their treats won't come in a washing basket. So if you just wait a moment, I'm sure that will take place.
And that is to thank Liz. Yeah. And we haven't actually got a gift, but I want to say, well, we will give you a gift afterwards, but I want to say that, you know, it's been 10 years of just this day, 11 years. No, this is the 11th year. And Liz had this inspiration. And I remember a bit like what Cindy said, you thought you were going crazy or something, right? And, you know, how just this day has brought people together all over the world. People have come together to meditate, to do the things that I think all of us here know is ultimately the foundation of the transformation of our world. And so I think you have made, you personally and all the people around you, a huge contribution to our world of peace and love that is coming. And well, how can you say thank you for that? It's beyond thanks, thanks to God. And just this day's, Liz said, well, this is the end of just this day. And I said to her earlier, you sure? We're not going to do this again? She said, well, in that form. So I mean, there might be another incarnation. And I should also do a promo of St. Martin's in the Fields. Actually, you would do a better promo, but thank you, Liz, from all of us.
Well, what I will tell you, if you've been to St. Martin in the Fields, it's very uncomfortable sitting on a wooden seat. So, for your joy, I hope that I've managed to get the cushions from the concert people. So if anybody is free on Wednesday morning, there will be two of the lovely speakers from here, Father Laurence and Sister Jayanti, will be there, and there'll be a time of meditation. And David Ward, who's here, will be playing some beautiful Mozart with his son-in-law. And I would be delighted to see anybody. And there's a flyer at the back which will give you the information. Thank you.